Hey folks, today we're working on a G1 Blitzwing. That's the 1985 triple changer. Our base bot is on the right. We're going to build that one up through primarily parts transplants, and then the bot on the left is our donor. The donor has a couple of good points. It has a turret, which is really good to see, but otherwise it's really mangled, very dirty. You'll see it throwing a lot of debris and just crud in general onto the work table as we start to disassemble it. But this base bot that we're going to refurbish is in pretty good shape. As we look a little closer, you'll start to see some of the classic weak spots on this toy, one of which is the wing tips, right? So these wing tips are often missing, and if they're there at all, they have a white stress mark. And then in this particular bot's case, a little less common, this entire wing on the other side is just missing. So that gives us an opportunity to open up that assembly and see how it attaches, which is kind of interesting. And then we've got a nose cone situation. It's obviously just scratched up really bad. It's a cosmetic problem. I think we can improve on that. And then we've got the feet slash tail fins, which are super, at least this one is super loose and wobbly. Not sure what's going on there. So we'll just have to open him up and see what's going on inside. So taking a look at the donor bot, you can see that we've got wings. The stickers are in bad shape, and some other time I'll show you how to take stickers off safely. Right now I just want the parts. When you look at the legs, these are in the worst shape. I really can't even get them extended. They're super fused. Looking at these metal fins, I'm almost speechless. I mean, this thing looks like it was dragged under a car against the pavement. Maybe then dipped in a vat of acid. Even if you were good at metalworking, I don't think you could shine these back up without taking off, so much of the metal that it's just not the same piece anymore. So we're probably not going to be able to use those. This part of the body you can see has been scratched up pretty badly too. That paint is down to the metal. But we do have the turret, and we've got a nose cone that I think we can make use of. That's pretty clean. And then finally, let's look at the landing gear. This is another piece of die-cast metal, and wow, that is a horror show. It's green from whatever the corrosion is that has implanted itself in there. So now removing the turret, we can see that it's in pretty good shape. It's actually holding both positions, collapsed and extended. It's just dirty. So we'll wash that up just as we will with the other donor parts. Everything needs to be cleaned up to get rid of this staining and whatever the gunk is that's covering it, at least as much as is reasonable without damaging the plastic. The next step for the disassembly is going to be to take the wing assembly off. You'll actually get to see the firing mechanism. These are just Phillips head screws, of course. We'll pull those off and then gently tease this thing out. It's kind of connected in two spots. One is where the button is, and one is where this purple tab is. So you want to push on the back of the purple tab and kind of work it out evenly so you don't pry anything in a funny angle. There's the firing mechanism where you press to release the missile, but there's no spring to fire the missile. It'll just fall out. Now moving over to the other side, we're going to do the same thing and get the wing removed. These are Phillips head screws, and you'll see I have a problem here. The screws are very rusted, and it was very difficult to get the screwdriver to bite into the grooves on the head of the screw. So I actually switched over to a flathead screwdriver. Sometimes that's all you really need. If you have a little bit of a groove to work with, you can get it in there, and that'll break it loose. So you see it broke loose there while it rains debris onto the table underneath. So now with the screws out, we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side. Use that purple tab, get it going, and then kind of wiggle it out evenly. We don't want to break anything, and now we've got it off. We'll move on to the nose cone. The donor bot has a pretty clean nose cone. Not too hard to break the screw loose. I think this will look nice on the new bot. I'm impressed that this piece was able to survive in such good condition considering the condition of the rest of the bot. Once you get the screw out, you just have to crack the seam open. I started at the sort of tip of the nose. It turned out to be easier to open it up from the back. So you'll see here's where we're able to get it open. There you go. Yeah, come on out of there. And there it is. So we've got a nice nose cone. We don't necessarily need to use both parts, and I definitely don't want to use this landing gear. Maybe I'll work on that for some future project. And here are the parts that we've liberated from the donor bot. They've already been cleaned, and they're looking pretty good. Not 100%, but we were able to get most of it off of there. So all of this is good material that's going to go into the build of the base bot. We'll start off with the turret, and you can see on the underside here, this is an interesting view. You can see the two positions and those detents where the plastic fits into those little grooves, right? And that's what holds it in the extended or the collapsed position. So there's still a little bit of that staining. I wasn't able to get out of there without, getting deeper into the plastic, but it's invisible anyway. So, I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Let's get this guy back together. And then replace the screws. So it's looking pretty good. So now we'll move over to the base bot, and let's get his nose cone removed so that he can get his upgrade. Pretty easy to break this one loose. No corrosion or rust in this one. Learned my lesson last time. Let's open it up from the back of the head. That'll be a little bit easier to get into the seam. Still struggling a little bit with it, but we'll get it opened up. There we go. And now it's free. And we can compare the two. Yeah, that's going to be a really nice upgrade. I can tell it's really clean. So now let's put this new nose cone onto the base bot. We just need to snap it all back together. We're keeping the original landing gear and face plate. Just check that the hinge is working. Everything should be seated correctly. We'll get the screw back in there and then move on to the wings. So to get the wing back on there, this is a little bit of a surprising way of fitting things together. There are these two hooks, and the fin has to slide into the firing assembly there. If you're like me, you'll forget to put the wheel in, and so you'll go back and get the wheel and put it in there. Don't want to forget the wheel. But once that's all held together, it's not too fiddly. You should be able to slide it back onto the actual wing here, or whatever we would call this, the tread. Here's a better look at how that wing fits together. This is the other side now. And you see we'll remember the wheel this time, and those two hooks just slide right into that firing mechanism piece. We'll test the button, make sure that's all working. And now we're going to take a step back. I actually overlooked this earlier, but the new bot is missing the post that the turret attaches to. So we're going to have to steal that from the donor bot. And again, the screw is so rusted and corroded that I can't get the Phillips screwdriver into it. So I'm using the flathead. That works fine. And we'll clean that up. And I'm also going to put the screw into some white vinegar and let it sit there for an hour. That should soften up the rust and allow me to kind of scrub it off and maybe reuse that screw. And while we're waiting for that, we're going to open up the leg. I want to see what's going on with that loose fin, right? It's a really floppy fin, so it makes it difficult for Blitzwing to stand up. We'll open it up, and it's going to reveal a really interesting engineering feature, and that is the way that the leg stays extended and collapsed. So unlike most transformers, this is using a metal pin on a spring to apply pressure into those little detent slots. Most transformers function the way that turret did. It's just a deformed piece of plastic that is falling into the slot. So this is a much better solution and not common. And now that I've got this calf removed and can take a closer look at it, it's becoming clear what the problem is. That hole where the axle goes through is just gouged out. There's way too much space there. You can see side by side the good leg versus the bad leg on the left. There's just a lot of material missing. So we're going to fix that. I'm going to have to rebuild some of that missing material using super glue, baking soda, a file from a modeling kit, and some clear nail polish. So what we'll do is take this glue. I'm just using this gel type super glue. So this is not the real thin one. This is a little thicker. And I'm just going to build up that missing corner. Okay, and just use a toothpick to apply it. I don't use the actual, the tip of the super glue bottle. The toothpick works for me. And then once I've got it roughly the size, if not perfectly the shape, but just kind of the amount of material on there that I want, then I'm going to sprinkle baking soda on there. And the combination of baking soda with super glue, it's almost like an epoxy. It's a really strong material, much stronger than super glue by itself. It rapidly accelerates the hardening process and it makes it really hard. So hard that you can actually file it to shape. You can file it, you can drill into it. It's a really good way of rebuilding missing plastic. And then once it's shaped up and working correctly, I use a little bit of clear nail polish, which is a nice, almost sealant. And now we'll put the turret post back on. It turns out I was able to reuse that screw. Spending about an hour in white vinegar was enough to clear off a lot of that built up rust. Now, sometimes with a really bad piece of metal, you might have to leave it overnight. But in this case, it worked pretty quickly. And let's get the turret back on here. There you go. So here's Blitzwing all finished up and put back together. A very satisfying refurb, mainly using organ transplants from the donor bot, a little bit of rust removal, and a bit of plastic surgery, to coin a phrase. You can see he's able to stand firmly now on that foot. So I hope this was useful. We'll see you next time.